Hey there, good afternoon. How you doing? It's Louisa Munson with the Feel Good Astrology Show. And it's the one you might have heard Mr. Munson next to me. Come on, say hello. So it's Sunday afternoon here and I'm in quite a sort of fun and happy mood. So this is the let me have a look at your chart show, or let me take a look at your chart show. And I've got 4 charts to have a look at today. And yeah, it's my opportunity to sort of play around a little bit, to sort of dive deep into your chart and to examine the patterns. Now, often what happens is that we have often really linked charts. So even though I've got 4 people who've asked me to have a look at their charts today, you know, there's probably going to be some things that sort of link them all together, which is what my sort of expectation is as well. I'm going to be looking for it. And I wonder if you'll be able to see the links as well. Anyway, I'm coming to you from Portugal. It's Sunday afternoon. And usually at the start of these shows, I like to welcome everybody and also talk a little bit about the week ahead. So why don't you drop me a line in the chat room? Let me know who you are, where you're listening from, and if there's anything you want to know about. Because if I can answer that while I'm also looking at the charts, I'm very, very happy to do so. Also, if you'd like to have me look at your chart another time, then just drop me a line. Let me just add my email at the bottom. So it's louisatannermunson@gmail.com. And you can reach me that way and drop over your details and I will put you on the waiting list for the next show. Before we get going then, let me tell you a little bit about the week ahead, and also got some comments coming in. One actually from the guy sat next to me, which is Mr. M, saying nice backdrop. Yeah, we got some plants. I've been desperate to get away from a green screen and to actually have something really natural behind me.
It's a real green screen.
It's a real green screen now that I've got. We've also got the Ancient Mariner joining us. Good evening, Portugal. Good evening, Ancient Mariner. Now, I know that you've sent your details to Carl, and Carl has messed up because Carl got a message to say, here's my birth chart. Give it to Louisa, but give it anonymously. But of course, the moment Carl saw your birth chart, he said, oh, the Ancient Mariner wants you to have a look at his chart. So he just didn't read ahead. So I will have a look at that, Ancient Mariner, and I'll have a look at that next week. You're actually on my list. I've also got Willie B joining me saying, hi, happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to you too, if you are a mum. I don't know if you are or not, but thank you so much. It's great here, actually, as an expat. I celebrate the Mother's Day in the UK and also in Portugal, and now also in the US. So it's like I've got 3 of them. It's pretty cool. Traitor Munson. He didn't do it deliberately, Ancient Mariner. It was literally he kind of it's that thing, you know where you look at something and you think you've got the message without actually looking at it and reading it. I think that's what it is. And Carl's just so happy to help anyway. So anyway, it's so nice having you so close. Anyway, in this week ahead, we've got a few big patterns, and it's almost like I'm doing an announcement because on Tuesday the 16th, we've got Jupiter going into the sign of Taurus. Jupiter changes signs every 11.8 months, so it's roughly once a year. And yeah, Jupiter's going into the sign of Taurus 1720. That's UK and Portugal time. Hey, Sarah, nice of you to join us. Hope you had a great trip. It's really lovely to see you here. See, you got 2 waves there. We've also got this really interesting pattern arriving later on at the end of the week. So we've got the new moon on Friday, which is at 27 degrees in the sign of Taurus. And it's, the new moon is really good. I don't know if any of you use the new moon to plan your life or launch things, or to just observe that you're in a new cycle. So for instance, right now we're in the waning moon cycle. So the last time we had a sort of like big moon event was the full moon, which was the penumbral lunar eclipse. And now, since the full moon, the moon has been getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until the 19th. And so in that waning phase, as the moon is getting smaller and smaller, it lends itself to tidying things up, neatening things up, understanding things better, kind of reeling yourself in a little bit. And then from the new moon, we've got this rebirthing. The new moon, it essentially disappears and then starts to grow. And so it's really perfect for the kind of energy of sowing seeds and expecting to get some good results. I did actually sow some seeds over the weekend because I'm an impatient gardener, and I'm also going to be sowing some new seeds after the new moon. And I always watch the difference. But like I say, I'm an impatient. I like to also give nature a go as well. But yeah, I can recommend also using the moon patterns to do your garden. But anyway, yeah, towards the end of the week with the new moon, we've also got, with Jupiter's new position in the early degrees of Taurus, we've got Pluto that changed signs in March. And that is at 0 degrees right now. And we've got this bit of a situation brewing towards the end of the week, because Mars is also changing signs in the sign of Leo. Now, for any of you that know your signs, you'll know that Taurus, Aquarius, where Pluto is, and Leo are all fixed signs. Now, the fixed signs are all 90 degrees away from each other, or 180 degrees. So they're like the corners of a square. Now, when Pluto and Jupiter and Mars are squared up to each other, they create quite a dynamic. So we have got this very dynamic shift going on. Now, the big shift that's really occurring is the opposition between Pluto and Mars. And that's taking place on Sunday, the 21st, which is also the day when the sun changes signs. So we've got Mars at 0 degrees in the sign of Leo, Pluto at 0 degrees in the sign of Aquarius. We've also got the sun at 0 degrees in the sign of Gemini. We've also got the moon changing signs on that day. And it will be at 0 degrees in the sign of Cancer. And then we've got Jupiter in the sign of Taurus. Now they're all going to be affecting each other. And so it is not only a really good new birthing pattern, but Pluto is about control and manipulation, and definitely about things outside of our level of control, like our personal responsibility. So for instance, like we all live in a world, we are all sharing this world, and yes, we all have a collective responsibility to each other, but there are also people who appear to be able to make big decisions that affect everybody. And so Pluto often represents these entities, let's call them. And Pluto often shows us what we fear, but also what we might be frightened of and who we might be frightened of. So we've got Pluto, which is could be an energy that's gaslighting and creating fearful things. And then Mars is a planet which is like an activator, an energy, an aggression. It's yang to the yin of Venus, So we've got this very strong, I need to take control. And it's a very personal planet, Mars, against this very strong, I'm going to be in control, like Darth Vader. So it's almost a bit like Star Wars is going on. We've also got Jupiter. And I think Jupiter is hopeful and optimistic, and they're all kind of working together. So we've got this really big new energy that is absolutely reminding us that there are much bigger pictures and we all belong in them, and it's time for us all to take our own stand in our own unique way. So there's some really big patterns coming up. Anyway, in today's show, I am wanting to focus a little bit on Jupiter in Taurus. And so as I'm looking at everybody's charts today, I'm going to be paying attention to that. I'm also going to be looking to see if all these people who I'm looking at today, I can see 2 of them in the chat room, which is great, if they've got things at 0 degrees or 29 degrees, because they will definitely be impacted by the astrology of this week. So yeah, maybe without further ado, let's introduce some of the other people and also get looking at these charts. So we're also joined by the Global Nobles. Happy Mother's Day. Oh, thank you so much. We've also got Penny Albertella joining us from Devon. Hi, Louisa and everyone. Penny, stick around. I'm going to look at your chart first. We've also got Zoe Kelly's Universe. Hello. I'm going to be looking at your chart today. And Family Munson. Please let everyone know Benjamin Stubbs is in the Iberian FM phone in at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Okie doke, so we'll do. What's the subject?
The next part of his book that he's sharing with everybody.
Okay. And what's the title of his book?
30-Day Happiness Bootcamp.
Okay, if any of you are interested in the 30-Day Happiness Bootcamp, then if you look up the channel Iberian FM, there's a phone in tomorrow at 10 a.m. And our good friend Benjamin Stubbs is going to be talking through his book. Anyway, let's have a look at some of these charts now. So I'm just going to bring them onto the screen. I think it's actually, I'm going to start with Zoe Kelly's chart first. So Penny, stick around. I'll have a look at yours straight after. And it's just because I've got Zoe Kelly's on first. So let me just make that bigger if I can. Make it even bigger. There we go. That's better. So hopefully you can see that okay. And you should be able to see my mouse. Can you just check that you're seeing my mouse? Can you see my mouse?
Not wiggle it about a bit. There's a slight, yeah, there it is.
Okay, great.
It's wiggling.
Okay, that's good. It's wiggling. So I've got Zoe Kelly's chart and also her transits. So you can see her birthday's the 30th of December, 1967, and she was born in Denver. And so we've got all of these planets in the center in black. That's where they were at the time, place, and date of her birth. And then all of these ones in green around the outside, that shows where they are in real time right now. If I just back out a little bit, you can see the whole wheel in front of you. Now, I guess each week when I do this, I'm also going to sort of maybe share a little bit of how I'm looking at it as well. So, you know, because we all have our different ways of looking at charts, and you know, I'm guessing you're watching this because you're interested in reading charts yourself. So you know, I normally focus on the ascendant first of all, or give it a good glance, because the sign that the ascendant is in, like, I like to look at the ascendant and think it's like the opening chapter to a book. You know, if you had a book of your life, the ascendant is like the wrapper of the book, and as you're opening it, that is the opening chapter. That is who you are. It's the first taste. It's like the first look, the first glance. It's everything about you is captured in that first moment. And her ascendant's in the sign of Libra, and Libra is ruled by Venus. So Venus is the most important planet. It's the ruling planet of her chart. So I would normally glance here, then find the ruling planet and pay attention to what the ruling planet is connected to, and also like the quality of the ruling planet. So as you can see, her ruling planet is Venus, which is here, and it's in a conjunction with Neptune, which is very, very dreamy, very romantic, and it's in the sign of Scorpio, and it's in the second house, which is about the second house. Hopefully you can see that too here. I'm going to just enlarge it a little bit. The second house. Now, a lot of astrologers would say it's just about your money and your earning capabilities, but I always think it's also about how you value yourself. Trust me, I've got loads of stuff in my second house and I'm not loaded. But I do think a lot about personal values and whether I'm valued or not, you know. So the second house really shows what you've got and where you find your resources. So it's not always just straight hard cash. It's also about your gratitude and how you're able to turn things around, how you're able to find the things that you need in life, which I think is really important. But definitely Venus is one of the benefics. So having one of the benefics in the second house is always very useful. It's seen as optimal. You know, it's seen in quite a lucky way. And you can see that this lovely conjunction between Neptune and Venus is also in what's known as a trine, one of these long blue lines to the midheaven, which is, I mean, this is Latin, and I'm not going to go and pronounce it for you, but it's basically the middle of the sky or the middle of the heaven in Latin. And the MC at the top is really showing the sort of direction you're heading in. It's like, where are you focusing? Like, where is your destiny? Destiny is a really good word for it. I always also think that it's like how you stand in the world. You know, what is it that you're bringing to the world? What are you standing for in it that people would see you for and go, oh, look, there's Zoe Kelly. You can see her because look, that's the way she's standing. That's how she shows up. So I really think the MC is really how you show up. And so what's really lovely about this is we've got this beautiful watery Venus energy conjunct Neptune. So Venus is about love, it's about connection, it's about sharing, generosity. It's very much about the flow that we have in life. And in the conjunction with Neptune, Neptune is a higher harmonic of Venus. It's like a higher love. And it's not always very well expressed. I have to say, Neptune's a very difficult planet to get to grips with because all of the potentials of unconditional love are there, but we're mortals, and we're really quite useless at getting our needs met and navigating life. You know, it's really hard, isn't it, to really be completely upfront and open about what we want, and to be in the right partnerships that we can share that information. It's not always that easy, and so we often play games. And Neptune shows us how we deceive ourselves, and also cheat ourselves out of unconditional love. And to be fair, I don't actually know if unconditional love is absolutely possible. I know I love my children to the best of my ability in an unconditional way, but am I an unconditional lover? I don't know if I am, because I'm also human, and you know, we have selfishness and meanness. You know, like we're in our little meat suits, and that creates that separation. So, you know, having Venus, which is about love and flow and connection, and also this really deep conjunction with the whole purpose of unconditional love and creativity. I mean, it's very psychic. Neptune is, I mean, by Neptune's very design, you can see it's like an antenna. It's receiving information. And Neptune is very, very watery in his expression. You know, he's the king of the oceans. Now, it's a little bit difficult in the sign of Scorpio, because Scorpio is very, very intense, and is definitely sort of affected by things like jealousy and in sort of insecurities that can sometimes create a bit of a nasty aftertaste. You know, I think with Scorpio in particular, it feels things so very much that it kind of reacts to everything in a very sort of black and white way. And so sometimes you get the force of it. It can be quite nasty at times, and it can also be really, really exalted. I think the sign of Scorpio is one of the most complex signs. And I also think it's one of the signs that gives us the greatest access to personal growth, because you really feel something. It really takes you to the edge. So here, you know, Zoe Kelly, I think what I think is really remarkable about her chart is that she's got this capacity to love that will take her down some pretty dark paths and some really intense paths. And her intuition is absolutely so spot on, and so painful at times, I would imagine. I would say, you know, Zoe's a natural psychic, probably voyant, or clairvoyant, you know, clairvoyancy, clairaudiency. I would imagine that, you know, Zoe's got pretty much all of them, you know, a whole suite of different intuitive gifts to access. And I would imagine, you know, like Venus and Neptune can make her really selfless. You know, I've seen selflessness patterns come up with people with these kinds of conjunctions. You know, this is somebody that wants to absolutely give themselves away to be able to prove to people what it's like to be loved, and what it's like to kind of go into that infinite merge. So yeah, there's a lot going on, but just to read her chart on that alone would be remiss of me. But it's the thing that I'm really sort of zeroing in on, because it's quite a beautiful thing, and it's the kind of thing that you would see in charts of people who have really quite unusual lives. You know, you can't just do a sort of like book job. You can't just go and work in an office and be happy with that, because you would feel so much intensity around you. It'd be really difficult. And now here's the next thing that connects. Is this Venus and Neptune is also connected to lovely Chiron over here. Now, I've said lovely Chiron, and Chiron is great. Chiron is a really good teacher, but it's not always lovely. You know, it can feel very, very difficult. Now, right now, Zoe's got Neptune over her Chiron. Now, Chiron's known as the wounded healer. So one of the things to bear in mind is, you know, when there's a pain, when there's something from childhood, when there's an insecurity that comes up, not only is Zoe experiencing it, you know, within her chart, but she's also experiencing the sort of transcendence of it at the same time. So it's really difficult to kind of process all the hurts and pains of life, whilst also having the understanding of it at a spiritual level, because you could almost spiritualize your way out of it without really feeling it in a grounded way. So it may help Zoe to feel slightly outside of her body when these traumas are happening. And she'll also need something to ground her back in so she can feel it and also flow with it. It's a really interesting one. But Chiron, when it comes up in my experience, and my Chiron is also in the 6th house, I don't think it helps people settle into a normal 9-to-5 job when you've got Chiron there. You know, the 6th house is very much about how we operate on a day-to-day level. And I think Chiron shows us where we struggle in life. And so people with Chiron in the 6th house often struggle with the day-to-day as it is set up or presented to us. So, for instance, if you're growing up in a society that reveres working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, you're probably going to grow up and go, there's something painful about this setup. You know, that makes no sense to me. So I would imagine with the fact that she's got her Venus and Neptune in the 2nd house, about how she earns her money, which is really creative, really intuitive, coming from a very deep and caring place and a psychic place. It's also linked into Chiron. So she's also working with people that need to transcend their wounding. She's probably not doing it on a Monday to Friday basis. I would imagine it's quite, at some level, it's imperative to get into a routine, but it's also really painful being trapped in a routine. Now, I can also see that she's got Saturn in the sign of Aries, linking into this lovely conjunction here of spirituality and peace and this desire for everything to go really beautifully. But again, Saturn shows us where some of our toughest lessons are. And so I would imagine the sort of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, actually the whole stress of conforming is likely to make her ill, because illnesses like physical illnesses also show up in the 6th house. Now, what is kind of interesting is she's had Neptune going over her Chiron for quite some time. And that can bring up a lot of illnesses, you know, when it's right over our Chiron, it can really trigger that. But the Neptune kind of illnesses are much more difficult to put your finger on. So they can show up as depressive illnesses, as a, you know, like where our energy levels suddenly dip and we can't quite get you know, our understanding of it. It's really linked into our emotions. And so if you are feeling a little bit under the weather, or there's just been this sort of general feeling of apathy growing, what I would absolutely recommend is it's your time to actually do more creative things. You've got to use this creative energy here represented by Neptune so that it doesn't overpower your Chiron, you know. So anything that you can do that brings in the high love, that brings in the music, that brings in the senses, all of the senses, and also creates a mystery, you know, something that could be multi-layered, and that could bring in multifaceted levels of healing. It's like you almost want to use this energy so it doesn't use you. I can also see you've got Pluto going through your 4th house, and that is often very difficult. Thankfully, it's not at a critical juncture. And I'm just looking to see if she's got anything. Oh, hang on. We've got Pallas Athena and Uranus at sort of at the cusp here between Virgo and Libra. Now, this is actually in a trine to where Pluto is in her chart. So, you know, Pluto's in between the earth and the air function. And then her Uranus and Pallas Athena are in between the earth and the air function. So they're exactly 120 degrees away from each other. That's really, really helpful. So I actually think Pluto's recent changes is actually really helping Zoe Kelly in quite a big way. So Uranus here, this is really great. And this shows up in a lot of astrologers' charts, in people that practice astrology or practice some kind of prediction and futurism, and also unpacking coding. Now, the reason I say that is Uranus is very much about consciousness and what we're seeing and sensing. Again, if you look at Uranus, again, it looks like a kind of, well, it looks just like an aerial or a space invader. You know, it looks like it's receiving information. And Pallas Athena here, she is absolutely the goddess of rationality and female logic and female strategy. So it's almost like where we have this intuitive knowing but that we're able to process it in a way that can be used in the kind of rational world. It's like how we can form strategies. And so the two of them together, really, these two coming together, especially if they're in an air sign, in particular Aquarius, but the two of them together really show us where we can sense and pick up on patterns and also understand the patterns and say, the last time I sensed that pattern or picked up on it, this was happening. And it's like Zoe's got this sort of international database of when this happens, it means this. When this happens, it means this. And it's probably multisensory, especially given this lovely conjunction here. And these two conjunctions are also in a sextile as well, which is really, they're all sort of working together in a really, really great way. So what I would say is, I think Pluto's recent changes and where he is at the moment is bringing a lot more intuition. And I think you've got to trust your intuition so much more than you already do. Even though you already do, it's time to go all in, really, truly. And it's really encouraging you to absolutely trust that when you are flowing with who you are, life will start to flow with you. And it's like you've got to do an inside job. You've got to believe that this is what you are meant to be doing, and to absolutely allow it to come. It's almost like there's something blocking you. Now, I don't want to labor that too much, but the vertex often shows us, I love this, it's a mathematical point, and it shows us what the universe or life or love or God or whatever you want to call it, it's like, what are you being called to do? And it's in the 7th house, so it's definitely relational. It's definitely about helping people understand themselves in relation to other people. So it's about, understanding more about why we're here. And it's in the sign of Taurus. And what's really interesting to me is, at some point, Zoe is meant to be helping people ground their knowledge about themselves, understand themselves at a deeper level, and to really embody who they are. And I would imagine you've got some healing tricks or some healing abilities that can kind of come in. Like maybe when you do a reading, it's a bit like a download. But what's happened in the recent time, and I know like Zoe's shared this with me offline, I think there's been a slight dip in what she was expecting to come in terms of clients. It's almost like people have dropped off the radar. Now, what I do notice is that Mercury's just gone retrograde. So it zoomed past her vertex, which really shows us when life is really showing us all the opportunities. And it's just gone retrograde right over the vertex, kind of saying it's like you're being pulled back from your life's purpose. It's kind of like just drawing her back a little bit. Now, actually today, Mercury is going to go direct. So right now, or when I drew up this chart, it was retrograde. It's going to go forwards again. And literally just in the next couple of weeks, this will right itself. I'm really sure of that. Something else that's also going on is, the North Node is coming into an alignment with her North Node. Now it's going to be another 10 months away. And I'm not saying you have to wait that long, but I would say that what you're working on at the moment is leading you to a big step forwards. So it feels like whatever's going on and whatever patterns you're learning about right now, in about 10 months' time, it's like there's this kind of rebirth or a re-emergence of who you are. And another way of seeing yourself and putting yourself out there. And I love the fact that Jupiter is about to go into the sign of Taurus. It's just recently gone over your North Node. So it will have reminded you of who you are and wanted you to expand more fully. And then as it comes into an alignment with the vertex, I'm just going to look up quickly in my ephemeris when that's going to happen. It's not going to happen for a while, I don't think. So July, around mid-July, it's going to be going over your vertex. And then towards October time, it's going retrograde. And towards the end of October, towards Halloween, it's retrograding over your vertex again. So if I was in your shoes right now, Zoe, I'd get excited and think, you know what, I'm clearly learning something quite karmic at the moment. Get ready for a bit of a peak in July. And I would just if you can save a little bit of cash for around October, you may well find that what's going on now with the slight dip, kind of you get reminded of it around the end of October. It's not permanent. It's really not permanent at all. But I think this is almost challenging you to have rock solid confidence in yourself so that you don't let this sort of crisis of confidence get the better of you. This is a time for you to absolutely call into being the most persistent and courageous side of yourself. I mean, I haven't really spoken about the fact that you've got your moon in Sagittarius or that you've got your sun in the sign of Capricorn. I didn't really talk about the energy of Venus, but what I really like here is this planetary lineup, because I see this as being the meat and the bones of who you are. You know, it's that divine empathy and this lovely compassion and this lovely intuition. And I think you're being really tested right now. And I'm really, really sure you're going to be stronger for it. So I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to whip on to Penny's new moon. This is a quick one because this came in a little bit later, when I'd already decided who I was going to be talking to. Just checking to see if I've got any more messages. Nothing's coming in at the moment, but please do write in the chat room if you want to. So yeah, Penny was asking me because, hang on, let's put her back. Penny was asking me about the effect of the new moon. And, I mentioned it at the start. What I've got here is Penny's birth chart in the middle. So all of the stuff in blue here is representing Penny's chart. And then it's all red around the outside. That's where all the things of the new moon are taking place. Now, Penny heard that the new moon was on the 19th of May. Obviously, that's her birthday. And she was like, this could be big. So I've got this new moon energy over my natal sun. What kind of effect is that going to have on me? Well, first of all, one of the things that happens every birthday is we can draw up a solar return chart. So when the sun gets back to the exact place it was in at the time, place, and date of your birth, it sets up a new chart. So first of all, her new chart is going to have the new moon energy. And if you remember, the new moon is all about growing and expanding and like resetting. It's like a big reset for you, Penny. So that's the first thing to bear in mind. Now, in her birth chart, her sun is in the 8th house, which is about all aspects of birth, life, and death. And I like to think of it as the place of rites of passage. It's where we experience moving from birth to toddler, to being a child, to being a teen, to being pubescent, to becoming a mum, to say goodbye to your children, to go into cronehood. It's like a continuous, it's the 8th house, I think, is like a record keeper. It lets us know which stage we're at. And all of the different things that happen as we shift from one stage of life to another, that's always being emphasized with our 8th house. And what shows up in our 8th house really describes how we react to these changes. So it's fair to say it's a changing year. The 8th house is also associated with the sign of Scorpio. And I was talking about Zoe Kelly's Scorpio. Like, Scorpio is such a pathological sign. It feels everything. It's psychic, it's connected, and it deals with other people's values. So, in the chart I was looking at before, when I was looking at Zoe Kelly's 2nd house, and I said that's about our own values and how we earn our own money, and it's how we find our resources. The 8th house, which is opposite, is like how we deal with other people's resources and other people's values. Now, what happens when other people have values and expectations of us? Well, we have the invention of guilt, for starters, shame, blame, anger. All the emotions that we feel are usually because of our relationships with everyone else. So we might feel guilt or pressure because we know people have got an expectation that may or may not be reasonable on us. And, we maybe struggle to fulfill it or not. So all of that shows up in the 8th house. So it's often a place of secrets. And some of these secrets are the ones we keep from ourselves, like where we deceive ourselves. We can't quite face the truth of what we feel. But what's safe to say is the 8th house is a place of absolute mystery and wonder. And it is one of the greatest gifts that we can experience, is understanding our relationship to guilt, blame, shame, and anger, and how we can free ourselves from it, and how we can transform through it. So I would say absolutely, this is a year of transformation for Penny. This is huge. It's activating her 8th house. And it's right on her sun. The sun is about your personality and your identity. So this is really activating that. She's also got she's got Uranus in Taurus quite nearby. It's not right over there just yet, but Uranus is really moving closer. It is getting closer and closer to Penny's sun. So in the next couple of years, there will be some kind of shifts in terms of how you want to live, how you want to see yourself. Uranus, when it goes over our sun or our moon, it usually creates a big shift. Sometimes it's a bit shocking, in terms of how you want other people to think of you or how you think about yourself. So I see this as a precursor for the big changes that you might be going through in the next couple of years as you evolve and change. And like I said, it's going through your 8th house. It's taking you from one stage of life to another, to another, to another. So it could be, I know in the past you've expressed an interest in maybe moving to another country. It could be that, because Uranus does, break us away from, the mold that we've had ourselves in. But it's usually quite significant, and it changes the level of consciousness we have. It's like a very awakening thing to occur. Also, Pluto is nearing Penny's moon. So again, that's changing her level of consciousness, the way she sees herself and her relationship to the world. So I think this new moon is going to bring in a lot of changes, or the change energy. And if I was in your shoes on your birthday, Penny, maybe coming up to your birthday, I would think about what I might like to create for myself. And then I would get really clear about what I want to create for myself, how I want to do it. Actually, not the how, leave the how, just get into the energy of what you'd like to create, just feel it and just enjoy it. Start to dream and kind of muse about what would be fun, what would be freeing, what would be liberating. Where might your greatest identity sit? So yeah, there you go. So I hope that's helpful. Anyway, next chart I'm going to have a look at is Gillian's chart. Now, for each of these charts, I did also put in the progressed chart, but I think I'm just going to check out the transits for all of the people I'm looking at today. So I've got Gillian's chart here. Now, before I go any further with Gillian's, let me just quickly see if I've got any other comments coming in. Got hi, Sarah from Carl. Zoe Kelly saying, thank you, you nailed it. You're very welcome. I'm so pleased about that. I've got insert thumbs up emoji here. Thanks, Ancient Mariner. Owen, Lloyd, Martin. Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late. When you show up, and that's perfect. So thanks for coming, Owen. Newbinaire. Hi, my other Sunday live went long. Newbinaire, I love that you've joined me on your precious Sunday. So thank you very much. Okay. So this chart is one I've looked at before. And this is the chart of someone called Gillian, who sometimes watches these shows. And so what I wanted to focus on, because I actually know that Gillian's got quite a lot in the young degrees of signs. So for instance, she's got Ceres here at 2 degrees, Jupiter at 3 degrees. She's got Pallas Athena at 1 degree. And then her moon is at 2 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius, and she's got her Mercury at 29 degrees. And these are all very much in between signs, so they are very, very close to the changeover between one sign and another. Now, later on this week, like I said earlier, we've got Jupiter. You can see Jupiter's right in between Aries and Taurus. And so what Gillian's about to experience and is already experiencing is Jupiter's going into a square energy to where Jupiter was at the time, place, and date of her birth. I also know that at the end of the week, Mars is going to be right over Jupiter. This is what I was talking about at the start of this show, that at the end of this week, we've got this T-square between Mars, Pluto, and Jupiter. Now, what I didn't share with you is if you were to, and I've done this, I just haven't got all the details in front of me, but I've looked up times where Mars and Pluto are in opposition to each other. And there are some quite big world events, and they often have things to do with uprisings and revolutions and attacks and things like that. So, Mars is very sort of assertive, aggressive, energetic. It's vital. It's about strength. And then Pluto is like, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to control you. And so, we've got these energies very much opposing each other. There's a conflict. There's an unwinnable situation, really, and two sides absolutely trying to win it. And then we've got we've got Jupiter going into the midpoint between these two, forming a right angle triangle. It's called a T-square in astrology. And Jupiter is an expander, so it expands everything. And so we've got this kind of very sort of strong dynamic in the world that is making people feel like they're in this no-win situation, and Jupiter is just emphasizing and inflaming it. Now, if we were to look at that T-square, that is going to activate Gillian's Jupiter here. And I'm just seeing if it's anything else that it's going to tie into. And thankfully, this is kind of interesting. So Pluto is also over Gillian's vertex. So it is going to have a bit of an effect on Gillian's energy. So, Mars going over Gillian's Jupiter in her 11th house is really bringing in this element of extra vitality and extra hopefulness, extra ambition, extra enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is a really good word for it, actually, because Jupiter's hopeful and, it is optimistic, and it is expanding in quite a social way. Usually, Jupiter is quite a jovial character. It's quite humorous. And so as Mars connects with Gillian's Jupiter, it's likely to emphasize her friendliness, emphasize her need to connect, emphasize her desire to bring hope and spread, kind of be involved in vitality somehow. And Gillian's Jupiter is in the 11th house, which is all about social contacts. And our friendships and our peers. It's also about our hopes and dreams. It's also about what we're co-creating. I always think the 11th house is very much the law of attraction house in astrology. So I really see that things are kind of almost blowing up for her in quite a positive way. And at the same time, Pluto is activating her vertex. So if you remember at the start of the show, I was saying the vertex is a mathematical calculation, and I see it very much demonstrating what life is wanting us to do. It's asking us to get involved, like wherever the vertex falls in your chart, it's saying this is what life is wanting you to get involved in here. Lots of people who are teachers have it in their 8th house, about or their 9th house. It's kind of like, let's get you into sharing your knowledge with people, so it kind of shows up on this side of the chart. Now, Gillian's is in the 5th house, which is about her creativity and her ability to have fun with creativity as well, and birth new possibilities. It's also, the 5th house is very much about sensuousness and sensuous feelings, and feelings of joy, like where do we enjoy ourselves? And so at some level, Pluto is coming into Gillian's chart and reminding her almost in a forceful way, how can we help people to find joy? How can we help people to find release from pain? And how can we really zero in on the creative energy that we're all born with? And so she's got this kind of almost like, it feels almost like a karmic imperative to help people find their joy and their core. And at the same time, she's got this really strong energy giving her the confidence and the enthusiasm to really kind of bring it on. And there is it's like these two energies are also fighting against each other. And funnily enough, as they're coming in, it's coming in at a time when actually the world is going to need a lot more joy, a lot more enthusiasm, a lot more connection, a lot more cohesiveness. So I really see that Gillian's skills are just going to come online so much more during this time because it's needed. And it's like what she's here to do. So I really feel that, over the next, in particular towards the end of this month and right the way through June, really, Gillian's going to really feel like this is what I'm here for. I understand it now. This is totally what I'm here for. And as that's happening, Jupiter here is emphasizing all of this. It's kind of really shifting it. So her Jupiter is in the ninth, is going into the ninth house, which is about higher education, teaching, sharing, communicating, workshops. It's about writing. It's about publishing, and it's about helping people understand a greater context, and also about her own understanding and greater context. And right now, she's also got Uranus very close to her midheaven. The sun is on her midheaven. Mercury retrograde has gone through this area and is just straightening up now. The North Node is going through this area. So the ninth house is probably the vehicle that she's going to use to do it, which is teaching, and putting herself out there as an expert, and offering herself up as an elder in some way. And it might not be that she's offering herself necessarily. It's more that, it could also be that people are seeing her as an elder and calling on her expertise to come. And so I see it like her energy is rising. The energy of what people is needing is kind of matching it. So I think this is a very dynamic time for you, Gillian. I hope this all makes sense. And this is literally what is kind of going on right now. I mean, other things that are also going on, you've got Saturn that's crossed over your descendant recently, and it's showing up as lots of people being quite serious about life. So I do think there's a lot of serious people that are seeking you out at the moment. And I think that's where your joyfulness and your desire to help people laugh at themselves and laugh at life a little bit is really coming into the fore. So yeah. Oh, and also Ceres is pretty important at the moment. It's very, very close. Well, it's right slap bang in between your Pluto and Uranus conjunction, which is very, very strong. And really, at a time when you might think like, God, I feel like running away from this, there's this feeling of, no, actually, I've got to stick around. I'm being called to hold space for people. So, I mean, again, like with Zoe's chart as well, and your chart and Penny's chart, in each of these charts, there's so much I could look at. And I can only really just cherry pick a few things that seem really relevant right now. And also what sort of pops in and through me. So I hope that's helpful. Let's see if there's any more comments coming in. Penny saying, Fab, thank you. So many changes and shifts are already happening, but not owing fast. But not owing fast. I don't know what that means. Maybe that's a mistype or something. I'm buckling up. Oh, it's not moving, not owing. Joe is saying, I've Taurus 28 degrees in my 8th house. Is this good or an eek, please? Joe, you've got Taurus in your 8th house. What do you have in Taurus at 28 degrees in your 8th house? Is it like your sun or your moon or your ascendant? I mean, we've all got 28 degrees in the sign of Taurus somewhere. So I'm wondering what's special about that in your 8th house. I mean, it could just be that is where the new moon is happening. I mean, what I would say is it's very much like what I was saying to Penny, is the 8th house energy is being absolutely emphasized right now for her chart. So if you re-listen to what I was sharing with Penny in what the 8th house stands for in the sign of Taurus, that might be helpful. And, if you can message me by the end of the show just to tell me what you have in that degree, that could be helpful as well. Or if you'd like me to have a look at your chart another time on another show, then just drop me an email. Let me just, there you go. It's Louisa Tanner Munson at gmail.com. And then I can have a look at it on another show for you. So I've got Sarah saying, your info on the houses and what they cover is great. What is a resource you might recommend to brush up on these? That's such a good question. There's so many books actually, but what what I am doing at the moment, and I'm not quite sure how I'm about to do it, but I am going to be launching a community soon. And I think it's going to be a free community that people can join on a platform called School. That's really, really good. And there's no advertising on it. And it's really, really user friendly. And there's no fact checking, because that's what I have to say to fact checkers. Up your bum. So it's like completely private. And I want it to be a place where people can learn together. And what I'd like to do is to do some individual shows on the houses and also connect them together, because I really think, like, from the 1st to the 12th house, they all follow like a path of life. There's lots of different models and metaphors that we can use to help you remember the houses. And what I'd like to do is set up some kind of focus group, which will probably have a cost to it. I won't lie, because it will take some time, but and I haven't decided on an amount or what it might look like yet. So I would love your feedback if you're interested in anything like this. But what I'd like to do is put out videos for free teaching this stuff, but then maybe once a week or twice a week, have a video session that people who are committed to learning it, we all sit together and we'll look at each of your charts or aspects of your charts and demonstrate what the 2nd and 8th house looks like. And I'll do some little homework sheets. Nothing, that it's like, oh, miss, my dog ate it, or anything like that. I don't want it to put pressure on you, but it's almost like a private study group where you can learn about your chart in real time in a supportive way with lots of other like-minded people. I say lots, it will not be any more than 12 people, because I think 12 is a magical number because of astrology, but also because I think it has to be something where everyone can get a chance to have a chat and get to know each other. But what I'd like to sort of think of it as is that it's like a focus group or a master group for us to explore ourselves and each other and practice our skills on each other. So if something like that sounds great, let me know your thoughts, how much you might want to pay for it, how much you might want to commit time-wise to it. And then what I'll do is I'll put a community together, and I will back, I will design it, to fit whoever wants to join it. So there you go. That's my commitment. That's what I'm working on. And maybe the thing that's been missing all this time is that I haven't just asked people, what do you want and how would you like me to do it? So if you've got some thoughts, then let me know. So I hope that answered your question. There are lots of books, and off the top of my head, I can't think of any of the names of them. Let me just take that off. So there's a couple more comments. Sarah's saying, is it wrong to be jealous of Penny's chart? Oh, you mean Gillian's chart? I hope Penny's not offended by that now, Sarah. Joe's saying she's going to send us an email. That's great. Global Nobles saying, yay, love school. Great idea. Fantastic. Penny, I know you want to learn. So you say want to learn more. And Willie B saying that sounds wonderful. So if you could all, if you're all okay with me dropping you an email, maybe with a few questions as to what you might like, maybe we'll have an offline discussion about it. And I'd absolutely love to do that. I'd love to progress with that, because there's some exciting changes. And I think, we can understand these changes so much better when we can understand our chart. And Penny saying, I'm not offended that someone preferred, was like jealous of your chart, and then, oh no, not yours. Okay, anyway, right, let's have a look. Oh, Nikki's also joining us. Hey, can you look at mine about Lilith midheaven conjunction Scorpio square Uranus? Not today, Nikki, I can't. But if you drop me a message, just reminding me of your time, place and date of birth, I will have a look at it for sure in another show, because that sounds quite intense. And Lilith definitely gives us some big things to think about. Right. Anyway, got one more chart to look at. And then I'm going to go off to a gig and meet the rest of my family and have a nice sort of rest of day. So that was Gillian's chart. Now we've got someone called Kelly Adams, who I've never looked at her chart before. And I love all these double numbers, by the way. So her birthday's on the 22nd of September, 1988. I love power numbers. And she was born at 2:22 p.m. That's lovely. So now she's got an interesting chart because Kelly, it's funny, isn't it, how we've had like two lots of Kelly energy today. Now, what's just got my attention straight away is that Kelly's sun is at 29 degrees 59 in the sign of Virgo. Now, do you remember I was talking to you right at the start about 0 degrees, that, you know, we've got Jupiter changing signs. So it'll be at 0 degrees Taurus in 2 days' time. Then we got Mars changing signs. It's going to be at 0 degrees Leo. Then we got the sun and the moon changing signs. And Pluto right now is at 0 degrees. All of these 0 degrees will be connecting to her sun at 29:59. Now, if we were to count, so like at the start of each sign, it's 0. So it's 0 degrees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 29. And then you go back to 0. So it's like 30 degrees in each sign. And it's like 30 degrees and you've got 60 minutes of arc. And so hers is 29:59. The next number is 000. So her sun is literally in the last little moment of Virgo. Now, the 29th degree, and we saw the 29th degree in Gillian's Mercury in the previous sign we looked at. 29 degree is known as an anuretic degree. I have no idea what anuretic, the actual word, means, but in terms of astrology, the anuretic degree is showing that things are breaking down. And maybe that is what anuretic means. I really don't know. But, you know, when the sun goes into 0 degrees Libra, it fully starts that Libran energy. You know, it's the anuretic degree is kind of cutting away from the Virgo energy. So the Virgo energy is really sort of experienced all the way through here. And as you get into this last degree, it starts to break down. I like to think of it a little bit like, you know, when you're leaving one job to start another and you've handed in your notice, and all of a sudden nobody gives you any work for the last week or two because they want it to get done. They don't want you to mess around. And your loyalty is maybe a bit questionable because you're about to leave and go somewhere else. And so you're kind of hanging around and you're breaking away. It's a bit like, you know, I think when relationships come to an end, they don't just suddenly end. Usually there's usually quite a few different things that lead up to that event and that cutting. And like usually if you look back at it, you can usually see there are clear steps as the energy is breaking down. So the 29th degree is like a breaking up with Virgo kind of energy. So as you know, Kelly's birthday, you know, it's all about Virgo, and yet it's breaking up with Virgo. It's kind of like, yeah, I got some of that Virgo in me, but I'm kind of doing it in my own way. I'm kind of hanging around, you know, it's an interesting position. But anyway, her sun is going to be quite, I don't want to say triggered necessarily, but there's a lot of things that are going to be making aspects to her sun right now. And in particular, at the weekend coming, you know, this is going to be very, very strong. So, for instance, you've got Pluto here that is in a lovely trine to her sun. And that's really transforming. That's really helping her personality, her individuality, her ability to define herself is getting so much stronger. And it's probably changing in quite surprising ways. Like the sun is the ruler of Leo. So it's quite important for us to think, okay, where's her Leo here? And her Leo is really about the 8th house, which is about transformation. It's funny, isn't it, that the 2nd and the 8th house seem to be quite emphasized in all of these readings that I've been looking at. And so, her son has some of this energy of transformation, and the need to kind of cut herself away from guilt, blame, shame, and anger. The sign of Virgo is traditionally, I think, very much about cleaning up our act. The sign of Virgo is really associated with naturalness, and also fit for purpose and things like that. And in particular, I would say right now, it's being, there's lots of new ideas and how she can get cleaner and clearer, and it's really cool. Also, now this is something that comes up a lot in astrologers' charts, is, I mentioned Pallas Athena earlier, and her Pallas Athena is in the sign of Aquarius, and her moon is in the sign of Aquarius. Two markers often found in astrology charts. And my Pallas Athena is in the sign of Aquarius. Now, my Pallas Athena and Pluto are in an actual aspect, showing a real kind of love of deeply inquiring into these patterns. And so what I really see right now with Pluto on her Pallas Athena is that there's this really deep inquiry about her patterns. She's fascinated by patterns anyway. She's probably quite good at understanding patterns and language and different codes and things like that. She's probably quite good at cracking codes, especially things about truth, because Vesta here is so close to her sun. And Vesta is all about us finding our sacredness about life. And so it's almost like she's been given the keys to understanding what her life is about, in particular about how she can be more sacred. Like the 9th house here is very much about the higher context. And so at some level, she is all about the higher context. And, she may well have come into this world to experience a life that takes her outside of her usual environment, from how she grew up and what she was taught as, in her childhood. So there is this kind of new context coming in for her. So this is quite important. Now, we've also got Jupiter that's just about to change signs. And that's going to be 150 degrees away, which is an interesting degree. It's not a trine, it's not a square. It's known as a quincunx, and it's got a couple of different names. I prefer the name quincunx, and it's quite creative. It shows like a new way of doing something. It's not normal, it's not easy, but there is almost like this new magical degree. There's a style of astrology called Magi, I think it's Magi. And the Magi astrologers are quite fatalistic. They're very, very certain about their predictions and forecasts. And I've done quite a lot of reading about what they do. They really, really like the quincunx energy of 150 degrees. And so her Jupiter, which is about sort of the expansion of who she is, because it's connected to her sun. So there's this expansion going on for her in quite a magical and surprising way. And it will create a little bit of friction. It's not an easy energy. And so that and Pluto at the same time is quite interesting. And then she's got Mars here going into her 8th. That's going to be in a sextile. It's going to give her a lot more energy coming up, a lot more vitality, a lot more vigor. That's really supportive for her. So she's got a lot of these things are moving into a position to really raise her up. So I really like that. And then also at the end of this week, we've got the sun that's going to be here in a trine to her sun. So I really feel that this next week is really going to be quite important to you, Kelly. It really important, because it's emphasizing the changes that you've wanted to make in new and surprising and perhaps unforeseen ways. And it's bringing up quite a lot of, I would say the vitality and the strength and the determination to carry out some of these changes. Pluto here in a trine is really helpful and will really give you a lot of strength and control. it's almost like, you know how kids, you know, when they're learning to ride a bike, they've got stabilizers on until they're gaining their strength. It's like you've got a bit of cosmic strength by your side. And you know, Mars here is really strengthening you. So I really think this is a good time for you. I would absolutely recommend that you spend some time really focusing on how you want this energy to come into your life and to be expressed further. This seems like a good opener for you. I would also say your ascendant is at 1 degree in the sign of Capricorn as well. So as Jupiter changes signs, it's going to go into, it's already there really, but it's in a lovely trine energy to your ascendant. And that's really putting you in the right place at the right time. That's really, really helpful. So you've got a lot of coding for this sort of 29 to 0 degrees. It feels like your chart is all about endings and new beginnings, and this looks like quite an important time for you. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. Yeah, so let's have a look. Let's go back to the show so I can see who's there. Let's take this off, and so we'll just catch up with some final comments then. So Sarah's saying, oh, excited about the school platform. If I can help, please let me know. I'm in. Fantastic. And we've got the Ancient Mariner. Wasn't it Mercury who sang I Want to Break Free? Freddie Mercury. That's such a good song. It's really good. And I think, you know, that energy, that archetype exists within most of us. You know, most of us want to break free at some point. And I do think that this energy coming up is very much about freedom. And that's why I'm a bit worried about, you know, how it might translate into world energy. You know, given that I've seen that, you know, Mars and Pluto in opposition tend to have, there's a lot of world scuffles. Like when I was looking at the energy the last time they were in opposition to each other, you know, there was off the top of my head, I can't remember the actual name of the skirmishes, but there was some really nasty bombing and that involved a lot of innocents, you know, that weren't actually involved in warfare and things like that. So, you know, it's a really eggy time. You know, it's a time when incidents occur. So I think we do need to be cautious, because whatever's playing out individually for each of us is somehow reflected. You know, I really do believe as above, so below, and in and out, and so on and so forth. So even if you're being facetious there, Ancient Mariner, which you might be, you know, you're right on that. You know, there is that yearning to break free. And I don't know, you might not be facetious. I don't know. I do think you like to have a bit of fun. And I love that energy anyway. So Kelly is saying, I was also born at home on accident. My address numbers at the time was 222. Funnily enough, Kelly, I'm actually living at number 22 now. Wow, I've never thought of my 29 degree 59 sun in that way, and I love it. Yeah, I mean, it's quite rebellious actually, Kelly. You know, the sign of Virgo does like to conform a little bit. And so you're breaking free of, you're like one of the least Virgo, you're one of the least Virgoan Virgoans. So, and you know, there are some things that astrologers talk about called decans or decans, where they divide each of the signs into 3 phases. And each of those 3 phases of the signs are ruled in a certain different way. And so I can explore that in another video at another time. Obviously, it's not something I can do today, but yeah, Kelly, you're not the most traditional sort of energy of the Virgoan energy. You're really quite interesting. So I hope that helps. This all makes so much sense and really confirms some downloads of messages I've been receiving. Great. I absolutely knew you were absolutely somebody who could understand codings and things. Family Munson is saying, great New Orleans cooking waiting for you. Can you come and pick me up then and take me to the pub? I would really love that. The Ancient Mariner, Family Munson, soul food served up courtesy of the 3 degrees. We've actually got a really good pub not far from where we are, right on the beach, and it's got things for the kids to do, and it's got gigs and all sorts. So I will be joining them there soon. Jersey Devil, hello. I've not met you before. So you've given me your time, place, and date of birth. Will I get selected in medical entrance exams? Well, that's a very, very specific thing. I don't like to answer things like, you know, a definite yes or no, you know, where you might have some kind of financial incentive on that. But I can, I'm very happy to explore that. I'm not going to be able to explore that. I think I've already filled up my spot for next week, but I can look at it in 2 weekends' time. So if you're interested in that, you need to just email me those details. My email address is louisatannermunson@gmail.com. Of course, if you want something looked at urgently, I'm very happy to look into it for you. And if you go to feelgoodastrology.com, you can also book an appointment with me. So I hope that's helpful. Please help me. I'm so under stress. Yeah, I can understand it. We are all under stressful times. What have we got here? Let's hope you make the cut. So you've got a bit of encouragement there from the audience. Thank you so much, Kelly, saying, I find your perspective is unique and really helpful to me in this reading and in your other videos. Well, that's lovely to hear. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. Right. Well, I think that's the end for me. I think the end of this show anyway. Like I say, I'm going to go and join my family and have a nice have some nice warm times, sit by the sea, listen to live music, have a drink and eat some good food and watch my kids bounce on a bouncy castle and end this weekend in a nice way. And I wonder how you're going to do it too. Remember, it's quite a busy week this week. There's a lot of patterns going on. So I absolutely wish you well. And hopefully I'll meet up with you again in the next episode. So the next one is this time next Sunday, and I'll look at more charts for you. If you do need some extra help, then just go to feelgoodastrology.com. Anyway, lots and lots of love to you all. Thanks for joining me today, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.